Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. We are joined by returning guest and family member of the podcast at this point, the brother of ours, Logan Paulsen of the Washington football team. Thank you so much for joining us, Logan. It's a depressing Monday. Washington lost. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I think obviously a lot of stuff to talk about with the game. I'm pumped to be on the podcast, though. I'll tell you that.
Yes, and we'll try to make this as lively as possible, given the fact of how yesterday went. But it's a tale of two halves, almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde of kind of thing. When in that first half, they had more penalty yards than they had total yards in that first half. And then in the second half, they just blow the doors off of Dallas. It looks like a completely different team. What happened?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I, on the first and second watchings that I've done in the last 24 hours, I would say that Dallas came out with this philosophy of like, hey, we're going to stop the run, which makes sense, right?
Right.
So they loaded the box up anytime they could. They had one more defender than the blocking surface of the Washington football team. So if the Washington football team had a 6-man blocking surface, they had 7 people in the box. If they had an 8-man blocking surface or 7-man blocking surface, they had 8. And so I think Scott Turner very astutely came out and started throwing the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought the concepts at times were there, but I thought in addition to those concepts being there, there was also kind of a lack of separation by some of the wide receivers on kind of pivotal down and distances, like 2nd and long, 3rd and short. There's one that I think of, and Aaron throws. So, I think Scott Turner deserves a lot of credit for this 4-game winning streak because I think it's covered up a lot of these issues that I think we all suspected were kind of there. And then in the first half, all of those things were kind of on full display. You know what I mean? They were on full display.
Yeah.
And then you get that kind of freak play with the interception by Gregory on the screen, and you get him in like an all-out blitz, and it should be there. And the timing's just a little bit off. The ball gets tipped and it's picked off. But, in terms of like a perfect play call, that's exactly what you want in that situation.
Yeah.
And then obviously the sack. And I think we just saw, it was kind of cool to see Micah Parsons come out and put on a clinic, from a pass rush standpoint. Like everyone knew he was rushing the passer really well from on the ball.
Yep.
But then from like an off the ball linebacker position, dude was just kind of on another level, which was, I enjoy good football as much as I don't want Dallas to be good. Like I enjoy watching him play at a high level. And then I think the big catalyst coming, because, you really said it's a tale of two halves. It's really like a tale of 3 quarters and then a little bit of the third and then the fourth. And I think that whole thing was sparked by, honestly, the big play to Cam Sims. I think that's a pretty easy kind of observation. And it just kind of showed everyone that they were in it. They were alive. I think Dallas kind of got out of this really hyper-aggressive run-stopping formation. They were playing softer coverage because I think, and I would do the same thing if I was a defensive coordinator. They basically realized that, the only way you're going to beat us is if you start scoring really quickly. So they didn't really care about the length of drives, the same way they had in the first half. And I thought the Washington football team was able to capitalize. And obviously there was the interception by Holcomb. So it wasn't all necessarily driven by the offense, but I thought, that defensive play. And then to just kind of make this point while I've got the floor, I think it's really important to note that the Washington football team defense had an outstanding game. I think they had a couple penalties, maybe a couple missed tackles that extended drives, led to points, which is unfortunate. But like in terms of kind of containing a high-powered offense, and Dak was struggling. I think everyone could see that. But in certain terms of containing a high-powered offense, I thought that group did a great job. It was the offense that really kind of had a tough day.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the defense, but you just brought it up. But one thing I'll touch on is through that 4-game winning streak, my guy Antonio Gibson, they were pretty much relying on him in the offense, giving him about 20-plus touches a game. Yesterday, only 10 rushes for, I think it was 36 yards.
Yep.
Were you surprised that they kind of steered away from Antonio Gibson so soon?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. That's the paradox of a game like this. The team knows what you're good at, and I think it's good offensive game plan to kind of get away from what the team is trying to stop and trying to prevent. And I think teams have done that in the 4-game winning streak. Like I remember Carolina playing a lot of a similar philosophy. They just didn't execute very well. And I think when you're Dallas and like this is how Washington makes hay, like you're going to do everything in your power. They had a guy that really showed up. Everyone's talking about the edge guys, Lawrence, Parsons, and Gregory, but the guy that really showed up to me in a demonstrative way was Gallimore inside. Was very disruptive for them. Obviously got the sack that ended up hurting Heineke, but a lot of tackles for loss, very, very physical in terms of eating double teams and beating one-on-one blocks. And he was like a disruptive force, and that's where they usually are very good inside, right? They're very good with Flowers and Sheriff, and he was kind of a problem. And it was like, again, I like good football, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see a guy who hasn't played since preseason week 2 to come out and have a demonstrative performance. So I think that's one factor, but also I think like when you go into a game plan with a certain mindset, hey, like we're going to throw them out of their 8-man box, we're going to get easier looks, and then you don't do the throwing part of that, and then you kind of are like, oh shoot, we got to revert back to this hyper physical running style that accounts for these 8-man boxes. I've been in games like that, and that can be very, very challenging to kind of shift gears from a mindset standpoint, especially. And the other thing that kind of jumped out at me when I was watching the game, and you'd have to talk to a player to get this 100% confirmed, but I thought the Dallas, the defense specifically, came out with a better energy than Washington, and it took Washington a minute to match it. And I think that's one of the reasons you saw kind of a lackluster, contribution by the offense. You saw them kind of get away from Gibson early. I think it was all these kind of things swirling around that led to that.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think the fumble by Gibson and then the sack that he gave up, I believe, I think it was Gregory who had like a delayed blitz off of Bates and then gets past Gibson on a bad pass block attempt and ends up getting to Taylor.
It was Parsons.
Yeah. So that play is really cool. I mean, that's again like one of those.
That was perfect by them. Yeah.
Like a fantastic play design. I think it speaks to kind of where Dallas was at and where Washington was at. Like they get up with 5 defensive linemen, right? Then it looks like they're running an all-out pressure. They got man coverage, it looks like, on the outside. They roll during the cadence to Tampa 2. They drop the defensive ends out. Micah Parsons, because of the 5-0 call with the offensive line, is 1-on-1 with Gibson. And, man, like that is about as good as you draw it up. You get the quarterback confused. You get a good pass rusher on a weak pass protector. And that's the result. And they just were able to do that almost on every third down. Like I went back and watched them all. And I just was like, it's so crazy that they were this consistent. And a big part of that was Washington was bad on first and second down. So they're in these kind of third and longs, third and unmanageables. And that's what happens. That's what you see in real NFL football when you can't be in a third and manageable, is you see the kitchen sink. You see just everything thrown at you. And it's really, really hard to play football that way.
Yeah, and speaking of having the kitchen sink thrown at you, that's what it felt like Taylor was going through in the beginning in that first half. Got banged up yesterday. Hopefully he's able to play this weekend, but Taylor was horrible in that first half. And I don't want to put all the blame on Taylor because I believe the initial problem was up front. To your point, I think Eric Flowers started out the game really, really slowly. He was losing blocks. They weren't being able to run the football effectively, to your point. What happened with Taylor? Is this something that has been evident the past 4 weeks, but it's been covered up by other circumstances, or did he just straight up have a bad game?
I think this is always something, everyone says, is Taylor Heineke the guy of the future?
Right.
And I think he has traits that you like and you feel good about, but there's always this player lurking not too far away.
Yeah.
And again, I go back to Scott Turner during this 4-game winning streak. He did a great job with play calls, play design, play selection, of keeping them on schedule and keeping Heineke out of these moments where that separate career backups from starting quarterbacks. The money downs, third and long being one of them, right? Red zone situations. He's done a really good job of limiting the weight that Taylor Heineke has to carry in those situations. And here it was kind of the reverse. He couldn't do it, and then Taylor Heineke couldn't bail him out. Now, I will say, we talked about it a little bit on the Michael Parsons sack. Dallas was doing some really, really cool stuff from a coverage standpoint and from a disguise standpoint, and it befuddled them enough that Heineke had to hold the football for a beat. And then obviously you get Randy Gregory, DeMarcus Lawrence, Michael Parsons. We already mentioned Gilmore. Like, you get those guys and they know it's a passing situation, and they know they got the coverage back there to back it up, and they know they've got the rotation hidden, and they know he's going to hold the football, and you get bad stuff. That's when bad football happens for an offense. Like I watched, so you should check out, I'm going to try to get on my Instagram when I get the clip, but I did a breakdown today with Pierre Garçon on Watch Football Team Today show.
Okay.
And one of the things that came out of that is they ran Tampa 2 3 plays in a row. Everyone knows Tampa 2. Cover 2, dropping the mic down the middle. They ran it with 3 different Tampa players each time. The strong safety was one. The post safety was one. Micah Parsons was one. And how do you know how to run your route? How do you know where the ball is supposed to go? Because you can't identify the coverage. You can't identify who's got what zone. So again, hats off to Dan Quinn. Like, I think they did a great job. And obviously, like, I think this is, to your point, this is Taylor Heineke kind of, this is an issue that he's going to have. But I also think that Dallas really came to play. Like, they were ready for this game in a way that the Washington football team was not.
And before you go, I will say I think that a lot has to do with that with the 10 days of rest up until that game. They had a lot of time to pregame. They go in and look at the film and find out and diagnose these things. If this was like a regular week when they didn't have that much time, I don't think that they'll have that complex stuff ready to go. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic point. That's something I kept forgetting about coming to this week, is that they had 4 extra days basically to get ready, and that is so invaluable for a staff. It doesn't really matter. I mean, the players get healthy, all those things, but from a game plan perspective, you can see some of this craziness, you know, and it gets even more crazy, especially you have an extra day to practice it and rep it and put it in. So yeah, I think that's it. And the other thing that needs to be talked about is just the health of the Washington football team. I think
I was coming, Logan.
Yeah, I mean, but like, kind of to your point, like, at some point the injuries are gonna mount up in a way that you just can't sustain. You know, Terry McLaurin's out. Obviously, the offensive line, the situation that they're in, like, it's crazy that they've been able to hide these injuries. The COVID thing on Saturday and Sunday, like in the morning, like losing your 2 starting DNs, like, that's insane. It's just it's a crazy thing to deal with for the staff, and it just doesn't make it easy for anybody.
Yeah. One thing before you go, I will say Daniel Wise, I thought, had a great game. I wanted to give a game beer to him because I thought he played his butt off. I know nobody really remembers the guy or anything, but he stepped up big when they needed him to.
Yeah. I totally agree. He's a guy that plays really physical, and, you know, think about it. He gets no reps in the week during practice. Then he comes out, has a physical football game. He's not the best pass rusher of all time, but physical, smash mouth football, you got to respect that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing this team has been actually really great at all season, is kind of that next man up mentality, kind of plug and play guys to be able to step in and pretty much be productive. But sticking with the injury thing, not really injury thing, but that offensive side of the ball, Curtis Samuel, obviously he's coming back from the groin. I know they were talking about keeping him on a pitch count, but it just seems that for some reason he's not just working himself into the offense. Do you think that's more of a Taylor Heineke and him, like, not having a chemistry thing, or do you think it's more on Scott Turner not really getting him involved in the offense more?
Yeah, I think that's, again, a good question. It goes back to the offseason evaluation of Curtis Samuel. Like, one of the things that I noticed about Curtis Samuel is he seemed more effective. Again, I'm not a coach. I like to watch a lot of football, but he seemed more effective as a number 3, a guy that you can kind of use, guy, internal guy, running choice, running seams, kind of a different type of route tree. And I don't know, when they signed him, they said he's going to play outside. And I thought, well, that's kind of, that seems counterintuitive to what he is. Right. So I think that's a factor. I think he's growing into a new position, and I'm not saying he can't do it. I just think that process has maybe been stunted by his injury, you know, his ability to kind of transform into that true number 2. And, you know, there were opportunities. I think about the play. I think it was like the first play of the game. He's running like a little, it's like a 7 cut, basically like a speed out off of a post stem, and Heineke kind of turfs it. And if you look at Heineke's throwing mechanics, he doesn't step into the throw. It's a clean pocket. And I think that is just kind of indicative of the underlying issue with the offense. Like, he just sometimes, again, it felt kind of like the moment was a little too big for him or whatever, but like, he's got to be able to, that is a 100% completion for most people in the NFL, you know? And I think that that's something that's kind of frustrating and kind of irksome about the game, is that there were plays like that. But again, to your point, Mike, like, they didn't get back to him. They didn't come back to him after that sequence. Like, it was just kind of like, all right, we tried, it didn't work, like, next thing. And again, like, they were 4 and outs. They weren't really very productive in the first half. And so maybe that affects play calling as well. It's hard to know.
Yeah, it's amazing because he can't hit that check down to Curtis Samuel, but he can hit that 48-yard touchdown to Cameron Sims. I mean, my goodness, the guy is fascinating to watch, to be honest. But I wanted to get your opinion on Cam Sims, because a lot of people, and I agree with it, he deserves more playing time at this point. He is just a playmaker.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've kind of been slightly confused about. And again, like, you're not with them in practice over summer. You're not with them in practice every day. But this offense does seem to be lacking kind of a big body wide receiver. And he's here on the roster. He's about as big as they come. I think he's 6'5.5", 220, and he's long and rangy and has some ability. But he does seem to kind of come up and make plays. And I know that wasn't how, I've heard this from other people, that wasn't how his career started here, but it's definitely how it's progressing at the moment. And I think he's one of those kind of surprising guys. I'm like, why not give him more burn? And I think, we talked about during the 4-game winning streak how it kind of worked in a way, because it was like Carter, him, and Humphreys were all kind of carrying that load. And so maybe he is involved. Maybe he just got his opportunities today, because he is getting playing time, but getting targets. And then, I think Taylor Heineke just giving him a shot. Like, sometimes that's what you need to do. And to me, that's what separates an average receiver from a great wide receiver, is a guy who can make a 50-50 ball like that against one of the best defensive backs in the NFL. So good for him. And I do agree. Like, it'd be nice to see him on the field more, but remember, DeAndre's been very productive over the last couple of weeks as well, so that's important to consider.
Yeah, and Logan, looks like COVID has just come and hit the NFL right in the mouth. As of today, up to this point, 25 players have tested positive for COVID in the NFL overall. And one of those players is Jonathan Allen, the defensive tackle and captain. Obviously, we all love Jonathan Allen. Had a sack against Dak yesterday. But my question to you is, what would be the bigger loss for this Washington football team against the Eagles, going without Terry McLaurin or Jonathan Allen?
Shoot, I mean, I look at this. So I don't know how much you've been watching Philly, and I haven't watched a ton, but yeah. So basically, they have. I can't imagine there being a bigger group of offensive linemen in the NFL, like a more physical group. They're just huge up front. They can run the football, and like, because of Hurts's kind of inconsistency playing quarterback, the last probably 4 or 5 weeks, they've really leaned on the run game pretty heavily, and as a result, there's been some ugly games for some other teams. And I think, like, Jon has been very successful over the course of the season, like outperforming my expectations by a long shot. I have a ton of respect for him, the way he handles himself, the strength and the physicality he plays with. So right now, looking at the week, I'd say he's the one that I'm like circled with a big question mark, because they're going to come out and they're going to try and be physical. And they have been, no team they played has out physical them up front offensively. And I think that, the Washington football team's done a great job being physical the last couple of weeks, especially on defense. And they're going to have to put their mouthpieces in and say, here we go. And missing a key physical element of that, I think, is going to be pretty detrimental, to say the least.
Vocal leader at that too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. Getting back to the defensive side of the ball, obviously Dallas had that high-powered offense coming in. I know over the past couple of weeks they were kind of on the lower end of things as far as like offensive outputage, but everyone kind of expected them to come in, throw the ball all over the yard. How impressed were you that not only were they committing turnovers, they were kind of getting pressure, and they limited this offense to, what was it? I think a touchdown and a couple, like, what was it, 4 or 5 field goals or something
18,
like that?
yeah, 18 points were off of turnovers of the 27 scored.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I got enough, like, being shorthanded, missing those defensive ends, and people say, "Oh, well, it's Casey Toohill and James Smith-Williams," but I think the important thing is, like, they cultivated a game plan around those guys' skill set, and then not to have them is really detrimental. So hats off to them. They did a great job. The coaching staff and the guys who stepped in for him, Shaka Tony, Rotimi,
but yeah.
Yeah, and then Wise, I thought did a great job. But I think the back end deserves a lot of credit. They've been doing a really nice job in terms of finding their zones and kind of clearing up all those miscues from early in the season. I think it's important to note, however, that Dak looked kind of a mess. He looked like he couldn't see the coverages very well. He was a little bit errant. And I will say a lot of that is the responsibility and was caused by the secondary. They just did a nice job. The linebackers did a nice job. I think back to Landon Collins' interception, and Jamin Davis is like perfectly in the throwing window. He's like right underneath it. He can't get the ball. Dak can't get the ball there. And as much as Landon Collins gets credit for the interception, like, the structure of the coverage and Jamin's positioning leads to that interception. So
forced it to be high because he's standing there.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that's something that's everybody's doing. Holcomb's doing it. Like, even on that Holcomb's interception, the way he's tearing, he identifies the concept. He understands it's a keeper. He's running to the position. He's not even looking. Like, he turns around and the ball basically hits him in the face because he understands, like, how he fits in the coverage contour. And that's something we didn't see early in the season. So hats off to those guys. I mean, like I said at the top, that group just they've been special the last couple of weeks, man. They're playing like the group we thought they would be at the beginning of the season. So Hopefully they can continue that, and they'll have to continue that if this team's got any chance to make a run at the playoffs here, because we've seen some of the limitations this offense has. And I think, to Mike's point, and Kyle, to your point, quite frankly, the idea of getting away from running the football, and why that's bad, it's because you don't trust the defense, maybe. And now you got to say, we can trust our defense. Let's trust them all the way and live and die by this sword and see where it gets us.
Yeah, and then this week I think is a big game. Obviously, going against Philly. Washington football team is now 6-7. They're have the 7th wild card spot. So they don't have much flexibility, and Philly's right on our butts. They want that 7th spot there. It's a big game this weekend, and we're gonna need our big boys out there. One guy is Sam Cosmi. We haven't seen him for the past couple weeks. He's been injured, he's been on IR. Do you expect him to be back anytime soon?
I don't know, man. I thought he was going to be back this week.
Me too.
But he kind of had that setback. When was that? 2 weeks ago? I forget exactly. But he had that setback, and obviously that's tough. That's tough sledding. It would be nice to get Lucas, because I think we saw some of Lucas's limitations as a pass protector yesterday. As good as Lucas has been, I am a huge Lucas fan. I love him. He's a great addition to this roster. He should be here long term. But obviously we saw some of his limitations athletically yesterday against a true elite kind of speed rushing type player.
Yep.
And that's Cosmi's kind of forte, is his tremendous athleticism. So I think it would bode well to get him back in the lineup if they could. Obviously I think another tremendous loss is the loss of Wes Schweitzer, because he can fill in at center and guard. And they just got to kind of manage all those issues. But that's the conversation for another time. But yeah, I don't know if he's going to be back. It would be great if he could be back. And kind of get Lucas back to that swing tackle spot where I think he's perfectly suited.
Yeah, and Logan, I just love listening to you talk football. But one thing I wanted to ask is, I feel like this offense misses, and I know it's Aaron Rodgers, because he's one of the best in the league. Obviously, he's fantastic at what he does. But one of the best things that Aaron does is he gets those cheap checkdowns, those cheap in routes, right? He'll get it to Devontae, get you an 8-yard gain, get you 2nd and 2. This offense just does not have that play. Is it the offense, or is it just the players not being able to get that?
I think it's a little bit the offense, but also I think it's important to note, one of the limitations that Taylor Heineke brings is his lack of arm strength, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of having to defend the line of scrimmage to 40 yards down the field, because Aaron Rodgers can dime you up anywhere within that 40 yards, it becomes line of scrimmage to 20. Yeah. And you can just imagine squeezing all those guys in that 20-yard space, and that's what teams do. So those little checkdowns aren't as effective. All those little things that Aaron Rodgers kind of steals are not as effective. And the running game that they have up in Green Bay is outstanding. Yep. It's much more kind of cost effective. And what I mean by that is they're able to get more yards per carry than this team is here. It's more dangerous. And I think they obviously they're a very well coached football team. They come from the Kyle Shanahan tree. Matt LaFleur, he was here. How crazy is that? All of these head coaches that were here. And I think that that's to me one of the major issues, is not being able to stress defenses. Think about, when was the last time you saw, outside of Cam Sims' catch, a ball completed farther than 20 yards down the field? It's really you're gonna have to rack your brain. I can't even think of one. To be honest, that's the first one of this season, and maybe the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, and actually that brings me to my next question. That's a great segue. You speaking about Taylor's arm strength and kind of his limitations. Going forward, like you just talked about, this offense is going to need obviously more explosive plays, especially if they want to make some noise in the playoffs and get out of the first round. Would you stick with Taylor down the stretch, or would you make the switch to Kyle Allen, since he does have the bigger arm?
I mean, I think you saw a little bit of that in the game yesterday. Some of those completions down the field, his arms a little bit more live, ball can get down the field a little bit more. It adds something to the offense that is nice to see. But I do think that at the moment, this is Taylor Heineke's team, if that makes sense. There's this weird kind of psychological or leadership element that is often underrated when looking at a quarterback. And right now, based on stuff that Ron said, based on stuff that players have said, it seems like it's Taylor's team. And it'd be really hard to kind of make that switch, even if I do think that it would add an advantage in some areas of the game.
That does make a lot of sense. Now, my next question to you, sir. Everyone is talking about this loss and taking it as the being down, that we're doomed, that was horrible, the worst thing possible. But my aspect that I'm looking at this is I learned a lot about this football team. Right. Because you saw what the Raiders did against Kansas City. They laid down. No fight at all. This team, they had no chance to come back. They had a 10% chance still with 5 minutes left in the fourth, still only down by a score. But they still fought back and clawed. So let me ask you, what did we learn about Washington yesterday?
So I think something that has been proven and talked about and brought as a truth over the last 5 weeks is that this team is a tough bunch of guys. They played physically on defense. They played a physical offensive game, although they were a little outmatched from a talent standpoint. I think they're a physical, well-coached, disciplined team that, like you said, is not going to lay down. And that is, I can't tell you how hard that is to do at the NFL level, because guys are in it for the money, they're in it for the paycheck, they're in it for themselves. And so you get a group of guys like this playing together is a pretty special thing, to be honest. So I think that's cool. I think the other thing that kind of bears itself to light is just these offensive limitations, quite frankly, that are going to need to be navigated somehow if they're going to make a run here. Yeah. And I don't have an easy solution. I think everyone's solution is, hey, we got to run the football more. We got to do all these things. But obviously, like when you run a game and you operate a game like that, you're walking a razor's edge in terms of margin of error. And that is just not sustainable for a long period of time. The fact they were able to sustain it for 4 weeks, I'm still pretty impressed by. So I think that's important to note. And I think this defense is starting to round into form in a nice way. And so if there's anything to hang your hat on, I feel like if this is the defense from week one, you know what I mean? This is what everyone wanted it to be. And so here it is, it's here now. And so really trust that group as much as you can.
Yeah, 100%. And looking a little bit ahead to Sunday, say Terry McLaurin's out with the concussion and he can't go, and obviously you're going to have to get a couple guys to step up as playmakers. If you were Scott Turner, what would be your offensive game plan going into this Sunday with no Terry McLaurin on the field?
So Philadelphia's kind of gone through a little bit of a metamorphosis over the course of the season. For a long time, I want to say it was like through week 10 or 11, every quarterback that played them had the highest completion percentage of the season against them that week. So they were very kind of porous underneath, which made me think this would be perfect for Taylor Heineke, right? They're playing simple zones, but I think they come out of their bye and they said, we're going to change this philosophy. We're going to be a little bit more aggressive, and they've clamped down. They played a lot more man-to-man coverage, a lot more pressures, and it's smart football. It's what you would do, right? So I think I would be ready, because this seems like what Dallas did seems like a pretty darn good formula to beat the Washington football team. So I would study this tape hard. I would coach it up, and I'd say we need to find a way, some way, to get teams out of this 8-man box early in the game. We need to get them, because I think also, I mentioned Dallas played a more conservative coverage cell after that Cam Sims catch. And I think when you get an explosive play like that, it leads to more conservative coverage cells.
Yep.
So if you can find a way to manufacture that somehow earlier in the game, I think that would be critical. I think it helps you from a coverage standpoint. I think it helps you from a run blocking standpoint. So to me, you got to find a way. We got to study the tape. We got to look at their tendencies. We got to find out what they like to do on first, second down. Can we run a play action concept? Can we run a flea flicker? Can we find some way to get them out of what they want to do and make them nervous? Because a nervous defensive play caller is not great. And Dan Quinn was confident in us all get out. He knew what he was doing. We need to make sure that Philly's defensive staff, defensive coordinator, defensive personnel can't feel that same way.
And now to wrap this up, Logan, I know this isn't really your forte, but another blocked kick yesterday, and that extra point of the Cole Holcomb interception, and it doesn't seem to be a kicker problem at this point. Brian Johnson, Dustin Hopkins, and then Chris Blewett as well had a blocked kick. What is going on that? Is this time to panic with the field goal team?
Well, so field goal protection is terrible. I don't know if you guys probably never done that, but I spent a long time, 10 years. Yeah, and then 15 years or 5 years in college. So 15 years of field goal protection. And one of the things that teams are always trying to do is they're trying to get you to protect yourself. And what I mean by that is, so like when you do it correctly, you kind of put your arms up, you kind of lock your arms with your brother, and you just kind of take it. You just get charged over and you fall down. It's terrible. So what teams do is they'll smash a guy right in your face. So you bring your inside arm in, and then someone will kind of just sneak through this gap that your arm is no longer in. And because there's only one arm there, it's a soft spot. And so what I see is that happening with some regularity at the weak point of the protection, which is usually like, if you imagine that V and how it kind of rounds back to the wing, right on the corner there is where it's weakest, because you can get 3 guys over that one person. And so I think that's something that you just got to coach. Just got to coach the protection, just got to get them looks at it. And sometimes, honestly, this sounds ridiculous, but sometimes you need to get the right kind of person in there. Like I've been on a lot of teams where you put like a starting offensive lineman in there, and it's just not that important to them. They're taking a lot of snaps on offense. So it's like, find somebody on the roster who's willing to take an L for the team, because that's what you're doing there. Like, just take that L, put your hands up, get hit in the face, fall down. I'll help you up off the ground, and then we'll live to play another day. We'll get points on the board. And I think that's something that you might want to evaluate coaching, and then just if you got the right personnel in there.
I know I told you that was the last one, but I actually have another one because I think this is very important. Your opinion on Keith Ishmael over the past 2 weeks, and also how did Sadiq Charles look in his limited snaps yesterday when Leno went out?
Yeah, so when Sadiq came in at tackle, I was like really nervous, and I think everyone else was nervous too because they called a whole bunch of protections to kind of help him out, right? Make sure he had a chip, make sure it was slide away, all good stuff. And I think because of that, he did a nice job, and it was well executed. I don't think that's his natural position personally. I think he should be playing guard. Me too. But obviously, like, you got to step in. Yep. They need you there. Figure it out. And then Keith Ishmael, I think I've actually been, I have to, I watch more coverage and route concepts the first go. So I got to kind of evaluate the trenches a little bit better. But based on the stuff he did in Oakland, based on what I remember from this game, I think he's done a nice job. Obviously, he has some physical limitations from a size standpoint, but he moves pretty well and seems to be targeting the right person, which is one of the reasons why I think having a little bit better interior units this week was a little challenging for him. But he's, for a guy who was on the practice squad like 3 weeks ago, like, he's doing okay, which is all you can ask at this point, right? He's not the best center in the NFL, but he's doing a good job. He's proven to be a good stopgap. He's not making mental mistakes. So check all those boxes. And then the height, weight, speed stuff, like, that's why you're on the practice squad to start the year. You know what I mean? So
when you said that, it resonated with me. I remember the J.D. McKissick touchdown from last week, and his screen block. It wasn't a great block by any stretch, but he did just enough to create enough lane for McKissick, to your point, which I think is perfect. I think you're right about that. So. Logan, I can't thank you enough for joining us again, brother, and spending a lot of time with us. I'm sorry, I just love hearing you talk football, Logan, and I needed to vent. I needed some therapy today after yesterday's game, but they pulled it out. And make sure you guys go follow Logan at Logan Paulsen _82 on Instagram. Did I get that right?
Logan _Paulsen 82.
Dang it.
So very close. Very close. It was good. Close enough, though.
I'll get it next time, Logan. I'll get it next time. Thank you so much, brother. I can't thank you enough. We'll see you again. Hopefully get the W, and everyone can stay healthy. Have a good night, Logan.
Appreciate it.
All right, brother.
Later, Mike. Later, Kyle.
All right, brother. Hey, man, that was fantastic. As always, Mr. Logan Paulsen is killing the game.
Professor Paulsen, man. So much knowledge when he comes on. I love it.
Absolutely love it. Now, let's get into our fan questions. But before we get into that, let's get into our Manscaped ad. All right, everybody, let's check it. Ho, 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 gentlemen. Just like myself, the holidays came early here at Manscaped, the leading men's hygiene brand. Manscaped just launched new products, including their new Ultra Premium Body Wash and 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. Everyone likes a 2-for-1 deal. It's time to give yourself, or someone who needs it, the gift of beautiful skin, hair, and balls this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com and use the code BurgundyZone for 20% off plus free shipping. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much. And before we get into our fan questions, just want to remind you guys that the Burgundy Zone is part of the Listen Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more info about the network at www.listenfrederick.com. But first, let's get into our fan questions, Mr. Hall. And the first one we got to go to is our guy, the Colonel, because he's not going to be happy with the way yesterday went. I can tell you that right now.
I can already see that.
Yes, but his question to you is, I was super impressed with Cam Sims last night. He's shown flashes in previous games as well. Any chance we will see an expanded role for him coming up?
Yeah, we just talked about it with Logan. You would like to see him get a lot more burn. Hopefully he will. Obviously, I feel like he's earned his spot. Like you said, every time he steps on the field, whether it's this year, last year, he's always just making a play. And even on special teams, you see him on special teams, he's running down the field as a gunner making plays. And like I said, I understand where he's not technically like their guy.
Right.
Like he was on the roster before Rivera got here. So he wants his guys like De'Ami Brown and the guys that he drafted, that he brought here to get on the field. But at the end of the day, coaches always talked about the guys that give us the best shot to win deserve to be on the field are going to be on the field. And I just feel like at this point in the season, especially with the injuries that we have mounting up, I just feel like hopefully Cam Sims will be out there starting this week in Philly.
Yeah, and I get a lot of Maurice Harris vibes from Cam Sims.
Yeah,
because that was one I would go back and forth with John Kime.
That was my guy.
Yeah, because I would be like, John, why isn't Maurice getting more we need wide receivers. He's doing great. And I remember he was like, no, they don't like his like route running or something. And then literally that next game, he had that one-handed grab
against the Vikings.
Yeah. And I tweeted at John. I was like, I know you remember me asking you about that. I know you remember that. And Cam Sims, I know everyone agrees. Cam Sims is a playmaker. He's just one of those guys that maybe he doesn't look great during practice and everything like that. But when you get out into the field, the lights are on, he shows up. He's got the stickies. That generally is what happens. But I wanted to give a game beer before we head on to Colonel's next question because it kind of reminded me. Adam Humphries. He was the most targeted wide receiver yesterday. 4 receptions for 34 yards on 7 targets. He did a great job. I have to give him a lot of credit because he did extend the chains at some point. He was like the one consistent player, you could say, from yesterday. Now the next question from the Colonel is, this is hysterical. Please tell me we never passed up a Michael Parsons. The only reason that's funny is because I was on Twitter today talking so much crap about Michael Parsons.
Yeah,
I hate Dallas, man. I don't know why you guys are gassing that guy up so hard. He's not even that good. Not just kidding.
Now, what was his question now?
Please tell me we never passed up a Micah. Yeah, because Michael was a top 10 pick.
He went before us. Yeah, he went before we even were anywhere close to picking.
And they traded back for that guy. Screw Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was just talking about this at work today. Honestly, it's funny. I blame the Denver Broncos for them getting Michael Parsons because everyone knew it was talked about way before the draft. Everyone knew that they wanted Patrick Surtain the second, and it was pretty much a lock that Dallas was going to draft Patrick Surtain. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Denver comes up. They take Patrick Surtain, and it just so happens that they're like, oh, let's go best player available on the board, which so happened to be Michael Parsons. And here we are. You got to deal with him for the next 10-plus years. But, hey, I'm confident that they will work a game plan out eventually to be able to stop him and block him better. But right now, that dude's just tearing the league anew.
Yep. Hey, look, he's a very, very good defensive end. He is. He's one of the best in the league at this point. There is no disputing it at all. At linebacker, he's not that good. So the next question from Colonel.
I like how he slipped that in.
He wants to please comment on our defensive backs overall play yesterday, especially Jeremy Reeves coming off the practice squad. He didn't get that many snaps, unfortunately. I think he only got 1% of the snaps, which I wish he would have gotten more. But man, dude, you got to give credit to the secondary. Like to Colonel's point, like they did a fantastic job. I know early on it kind of seemed like they were getting ran on a little bit, but they held them to 3 points in the first drive, and then the kind of the turnovers just blew everything up. And then there were a couple bad penalties. One by Deron Payne on that 3rd down in the red zone that extended the drive for them, so they were able to get the touchdown. Deron Payne's on that 3rd down was bad, and then the William Jackson pass interference on the long ball on 3rd down as well.
Tacky.
Yeah, and They did play poorly at some points, but dude, did they get it together? And they really did strap them up because in that second half, there is no reason that Dallas should have let Washington back into that game. That is, for any good team, that is an easy way for you to dink and dunk, take all the time you need, and get off the field. Doesn't happen with Dallas. They had to fight for that game, and a lot of that is due to our secondary. They did a great job, and especially on that Cole Holcomb interception. It's one of those plays. If it's open on the outside, they're going to throw it. It wasn't. Credit to the defense. They did a great job yesterday, man. I got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, no, I agree. The secondary did a great job. Anytime they should have been 3 interceptions, but Kendall Fuller really should have been 4 interceptions.
Landon Collins. My goodness.
Landon Collins, game of his
5 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 interception. Whew.
I almost said game of his career, but I'll say game of his Washington tenure career.
Yes.
Definitely 100%. So shout out to him. Definitely, he definitely gets a game beer. But yeah, anytime, like I said, first drive of the game, Kendall Fuller, right in his chest, right in his hand, should have had a pick. I think Jamin Davis got hit with one right in his chest. I think he should have had a pick, or maybe that was last game. I can't remember. Either way, anytime you can force Dak to have a couple turnovers, anytime you can force a high-powered offense like that to get a couple turnovers, and when you can, I'm not gonna say stop that 3-headed monster of receivers they have, but limit them and stifle them to a certain point. It's a great day for the back end, so shout out to them 100%.
Yeah, I mean, Kendall just seems to just not want to catch the football sometimes, but that's my boy, man. He had some huge plays yesterday. There was the one pass to Dalton Schultz in the red zone, and he came up and swatted down, which would have been an easy touchdown for them. They had to kick a field goal there. Kendall did a really good job yesterday. I know everyone's getting off for the dropped interceptions. I know what Rio called him the new Carlos Rogers, which is messed up.
That's so funny because I was like, he's giving me Carlos Rogers vibes, but Kendall Fuller actually
Don't do
gets
that
picks.
to Kendall, not to my VT
No.
boy, man.
Kendall Fuller actually gets picks. Carlos Rogers like legitly just had butterfingers.
Yeah.
But to your point though, I think Kendall Fuller was the highest graded player on PFF for our team yesterday. So like you said, to your point, he definitely was doing his thing yesterday.
Yeah, and so we asked our Discord chat server with all of our loyal fans, our best fans are in there. I asked them questions for tonight, fellas. What do you got? Jeff Miles' first one is, yeah, WTF.
Yeah, I saw that.
It gave me a good chuckle. But seriously though, Jeff, that was insane what I witnessed yesterday. They did everything possible to shoot themselves in the foot. You're cursing them up and down your house, essentially, if you're watching at home or whatever, and you're pissed off because they're not playing like they're supposed to. They came out flat. They looked like they were going to get ran over. But then all of a sudden, they just find a way. And, like, it's so hard because you started out pissed off. You watch what happened in that first half, and you're like, you shouldn't even be in the NFL. But then, under those circumstances, they still come back and have a chance to win. And that should tell you, with all those injuries, that this is not just a bad team. This is not an average. This is a good team that is just missing something. It's missing something, and I think it's confidence, it's attitude, and it's swagger. It's missing there because you saw Dallas come in with it, and they had that attitude. They brought that, and it was evident. You could see it. They were fighting. They were hungry. Give a lot of credit to them, obviously, because they were coming off 10 days rest like we talked about. But still, I'm just saying. I'm mind blown with the way yesterday went. I don't know how to feel. You know, you're talking to me over there, and you're talking to me over there, and I don't know which way is up. That's kind of how I am. Like, it's so crazy how yesterday went. And with all this COVID news of Jon Allen being out and the injury with all Tyler Larson got an MRI today. Keith Ishmael, fourth center now, is going to be starting for us. I'm mind blown right now, dude. Seriously, mind blown.
Yeah, to your point, definitely they show a lot of grit. Like you brought up earlier, look at the Kansas City game. They went down early. The Raiders went down early, and they pretty much were just like, you know what, today's just not our day, and they just gave up. So to your point, they went in halftime. I'm sure Coach was pretty much in their ears, in their faces, getting them, calling them out, like holding them accountable or whatnot. And they came out in the second half, and they pretty much showed that what Coach said. They took it to heart, and that just shows you that he really has a pulse of this team. And obviously, you would have wished that they would have came out like that in the first half and not waited till the third quarter to actually wake up and be like, oh man, we're playing today. What's going on? But I mean, look, on to Philly.
Ron did talk to them at halftime, by the way.
Oh yeah, I know.
He told them to man up. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was probably like in their faces, like telling them like, yeah, like sack up, pretty much. But yeah. So like I said, it took them a while to come out and really wake up. But you love to see when you commit 4 turnovers, give up 5 sacks, you run the ball for like less than like 70 yards, 80 yards, whatever it was, which has pretty much been your bread and butter over the past couple of weeks. And you have just, let's be honest, horrible quarterback play. And you're still only down by 7 and with a chance to win it with 3 minutes left in the game. I mean, you got to give your hats off to this team, the way they fought back and really just kind of bonded together, held it together, and got back in the game. But again, we just got to stop, whether it's in the regular season, throughout the whole season, or in a game. We just got to stop putting ourselves in a huge hole and then digging ourselves back out of it at the end.
Yeah, and last season I kind of got on Dwayne Haskins because after he had a bad game, we talked about like an injury that he had, and we all kind of just laughed at it because we looked at it as an excuse that you were just saying for your bad game. And Taylor did the same thing, came out and said that he had a injury to his elbow or something, and it didn't feel right for the whole game. I love you, Taylor. You're doing a great job. I don't think you're Haskins, but just X that out. Take it on the chin. Just take it. Don't add those in because it just doesn't. Not going to help. You know what I'm saying?
If you cross them white lines, I don't want to hear any excuses.
Yep.
You decided to walk on the field. You said you were good enough to walk on the field and play. I don't want to hear the excuse after the fact that you came out and put a poor performance to say, well, you know, I was injured. Like you said, I don't think Taylor's literally the 180 opposite of Dwayne Haskins. But like you said, I don't want to hear the excuse talk, the injury talk. It is what it is.
Yeah. And then from our next question, Discord chat server, some Sergio Martin, our guy out in Spain. Looks like the Spanish Cleveland. He said
that pulled pork looked fire.
Dude, it looks so good. I was pissed. I almost hopped on a flight. He wants to know such a difference between Parsons and Jamin Davis, both rookies and both linebackers. But Sergio, I know what you're trying to do here. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say the toxicity for Twitter. Okay, I'm gonna save it for Twitter because I like having fun with people. Oh man.
Nah, but look, to your point, and to everyone's point, that's kind of like bashing Jamin Davis. Michael Parsons has a lot more experience playing linebacker than Jamin Davis. Going back to college, that's what Michael Parsons was doing in college at Penn State. Jamin Davis was a first-year starter before he entered the draft. So obviously, look, at this point in time, and I said this on Twitter, can you name one thing that Jamin Davis does better than Michael Parsons right now? No. But that's not an indictment on Jamin Davis. That just means that come this offseason, you got to put in the work to get better, be better, and come back hopefully better next year. It is what it is.
Yeah, and given the fact that we talked about before we started recording, every single rookie linebacker generally does poorly.
Exactly.
I mean, look, you haven't heard about Zaven Collins. Isaiah Simmons was forgotten about last season. You
People called him a bust last year.
Yeah, you brought up Patrick Queen, for example. That was another one. But one thing you guys have to remember, Michael Parsons was the one guy I wanted in this draft as a linebacker. If we wanted anything, it was Michael Parsons. The only thing that I'm sitting here and saying is when I watch his pre-draft eval, the best time was when he was blitzing, when he was pressuring the quarterback because he's so quick, powerful, aggressive. He just gets to the quarterback. That's where he fits for me. And so all I'm saying is all these rookie linebackers, they're going to struggle where they're at. Jamin Davis would look a lot better at defensive end when he doesn't have to think as much and take on so many pulling blockers where he could just go straight downhill, pin his ears back, and go after the quarterback. That's not what Jamin has to do. Jamin has to do a lot of different things. But I will say I read a USA Today thing on Michael Parsons, and the most highlights that he had was at pass rusher, and the other two at linebacker were one bit. So yes, he's a great speed rusher, but that's all I'll leave with it. Now, our next question is from Burrows. Was this Cowboys game the wake-up call the team needed to now kick on for the rest of the season? Oi!
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really call it a wake-up call. Well, I guess you could call it a wake-up call because Dallas came out and just pretty much punched him in the face, and they pretty much beat them at their own game, which was be physical up front, play good defense. Obviously, Dallas didn't run the ball like we ran the ball. We didn't run the ball either, but pretty much that's been our game plan the past couple of weeks, which is, like I said, come in, play physical defense, be physical in the trenches, and run the ball. So that's why I think this loss kind of just stung a little bit more. Obviously, it's Dallas, but they pretty much beat us at our own game as far as how you want to play the game. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's a wake up call. I just think that it's more of a don't shoot yourself in the foot type of thing. Honestly, it's more of
I see what you're saying.
If you play mistake-free football, then obviously we can do good things. When you're over here shooting yourself in the foot, putting yourself behind the 8 ball, it's going to be hard for a lot of teams. You know what's funny actually? Before I let you go, I compare this team right now to the Ravens of 2 years ago. Lamar Jackson, or not 2 years ago, but Lamar Jackson's rookie year going into his second year, where it was kind of the narrative was once they get down, they can't really come back because they don't have playmakers like that. They're running offense, blah, blah, blah. And I just feel like the narrative right now for this team is they got to be one style of football, one style of win, which is control the clock, run the ball, pound the ball, be physical, which is kind of their narrative back then. But so hopefully we'll grow out of that. And like I said, it's on to Philly.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And do I think it's a wake-up call, bros? No, but I do think what Hall was essentially trying to say is this was a confidence builder. And yeah. I'm not going to say it's one of those, you're getting a good something out of a loss, right? Because there is no such thing as a good loss.
No moral victories.
Right. There is no moral victories. But the fact is that literally they had no chance to coming back in that game, and they still pulled it off with all the injuries and everything going on. But I will say that Jonathan Allen being the vocal leader on defense and for the team, him not being there on Sunday is going to be huge. And that is really going to test this team at their core. Now, the next question from us is our guy Digital Guru in the Discord chat server. Who starts at quarterback next week, Allen or Heineke, based on the performance in this game? That was a separate question. So it's basically, if you were to say Kyle Allen should start, do you think that's because of the performance in this game?
I'm kind of on the side of Logan, where I think that it's Heineke's team. He brings more of that leadership, kind of that intangible kind of leadership aspect to not only the locker room but the offense. But if you wanted to base it on performance, I mean, I guess you could say Kyle Allen because he looked a little bit better and he had he can stretch the field a little bit more, which is what I know a lot of people want to see on the offensive end, but I would still stick with Taylor. He's been the guy since halfway through
Allen always fumbles too, man.
I know. I was thinking that too. I'm like, he came into the Giants game,
Yep.
did the same thing
Yep.
like last year, but
He
yeah,
was
like I
4
said,
for 9 for 52 yards. I know. Look, he did good job, pushed the ball downfield, but it.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, both quarterbacks didn't play well at
No,
all.
nobody did.
But yes, but like I said, I would stick with Taylor. You've already been rocking with him for the past 13 and a half weeks. I think barring injury or some crazy 3-4 interception type of game against Philly, you got to let him drive the ship for the rest of the way.
Yeah, and look, Taylor played really, really well over the past 4 weeks, and you don't just bench him after one bad performance. Now, was it that bad? Yes, it was that bad. It was putrid. But the fact is, that's not who Taylor is game in and game out. And I don't believe that. I believe it was a fluke, maybe just like the Tampa Bay game, where the real Taylor Heineke, please stand up. And that's what we're looking for, the consistent Taylor Heineke, that middle level. We love the extreme, but we hate the other extreme. Let's just find that even kill, brother.
I always say you got to take out your best performance or your top performance, your number one performance, and your worst performance, and you're somewhere in between that middle range. And that's pretty much what Taylor Heineke's been for over the past 4 weeks.
Yeah. Now, our next question from Big Tony Shivers in the Discord chat server. If Charles Leno can't play, who do you start at left tackle versus the Eagles? He said Lucas played there last season, and I think Sadiq Charles came in yesterday. You are correct. He did come in.
Yeah, I would go with Cornelius Lucas. Obviously, he used a swing tackle last year. He stepped in last year, did a pretty good job on the outside for us, and yeah, like you said, like we mentioned also with Logan, everyone thinks that Sadiq is more of a guard as opposed to a tackle. Obviously, if you got to plug and play and make it work, you got to make it work. But me personally, and I'm pretty sure the coaching staff is going to go with Cornelius Lucas.
Yeah. Do I think without Leno, I think you have to go with Lucas at that point. Maybe what's going on with Cosme, and then push Sadiq Charles to the right tackle. The reason being is that you want better suited guy for your left tackle controlling that blind spot. Last thing you want to do is allow Taylor to get crippled based on having Sadiq Charles go out there every single play if he's not the best tackle possible, because left tackle obviously is very, very special. So I would kick that Cornelius Lucas out to the left and move Sadiq Charles to the right. But Leno came back in that game, so I fully expect him to come back without a doubt. Now, our next question is from our guy, Digital Guru. With all the injuries, the offensive line in hindsight, should we have kept Morgan Moses as an insurance policy? He said at least he knows the offense.
Yeah, no, because, I mean, look, we talk about it all season. They've been down to their fourth center, a guard here, and tackle here, plug and play guy here. And Coach Matsko has been coaching them up very, very well. And again, at the end of the day, whenever Morgan Moses was let go, people were kind of like in shock because he was the longest guy. He was one of those locker room guys. But whenever Sam Cosme was healthy and in the game, he was one of the better right tackles, not only just for our team, but in the whole NFL. So I definitely think that it was the right move. I mean, no one expects you to lose however many linemen we've lost all season. So, I definitely think it was the right move, and it was the right move for now and for the future, honestly.
And last question from Digital Guru. Let's go rapid fire here. Will now that Jonathan Allen is in the COVID-19 protocol list, will he be able to test negative in time for the Philly game? He has to test negative 2 times in a 24-hour period in order to be able to play on Sunday. Do you think that he'll be able to go?
I would hope so, yeah.
He is vaccinated, by the way, yes.
I was going to say, I was trying to think back to his interviews if he's wearing a mask or not, and I was leaning towards he wasn't, so I'm going to say that he's vaccinated. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure, hopefully, look, no one knows how it's going to react in his body and his system. Hopefully, he'll be out of his system by, I don't know, say Wednesday or Thursday. Maybe Friday or Saturday he can get 2 negative tests back-to-back, and he'll be ready to go for Sunday, as opposed to maybe a guy like Montez Sweat, who obviously can come back on Saturday, hopefully. But he's been out with his jaw for four weeks. So is he going to be in game shape? Who knows? At least Jonathan Allen will be in game shape if he tests negative twice and comes back. So hopefully.
Yeah. Can you guys please stop, Washington fans? You guys are fascinated with Michael Parsons of the Cowboys. It's crazy, dude.
Is another question.
Yeah, the guy's like, he's good. I mean, no, it's just all these people, man. This stuff is crazy, bro. Everyone like they're all so hyped about it. Just in case you didn't know, I made a tweet earlier today talking crap about Michael Parsons, saying that is he really that much better at linebacker than Jamin Davis? And I was trying to ruffle the feathers a little bit because I thought people were showing too much love to Micah with what everything that I was seeing today. Just didn't sit well with me, man. I wanted to kind of ruffle the feathers a little bit. Let's get these guys back up and running. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And you were one of those, but it's all right.
I mean,
yeah. And our guy Paul Murphy had a question for us and a statement. He wanted to say, as a Washington fan in Scotland, since the 1980s, I've watched the team on TV often until 5 a.m. I've never had the chance to see them in person, but I support the team whether we win, lose, or tie. So for fans who can go, be thankful you can, and go shout on a team for those of us who can't. And that's a little shade thrown because obviously Dallas took over the stadium yesterday.
I mean, look, couldn't have said it better. I understand why people don't want to go to games, or if you don't want to go to games. I'm not going to be that guy to tell another person how to be a fan. But I just know me personally, I'm going to go to a game 99% of the time, any chance I can get. So that's just me.
Yep, that's how I am too, especially. Now, his question from Paul is, could any team cope as well with the loss of Thomas, Young, Sweat, Fitzpatrick, Cosme, Royer, Schweitzer, McKissick, Bostic, Hudson, Toohill, Smith-Williams, Milne, and then in-game Larson, McCain, Heineke, and playing with injuries with Gibson, Samuel, and returners Collins and Seals-Jones? I don't think he had enough Twitter characters for all the injuries we have.
No, but I ran out of fingers and toes on that one.
But seriously, yeah, it's next man up, and I think it does say a lot about this football team. So I don't think there's any other teams, especially Dallas, that you could take away a quarterback and they could still somewhat come back in the game and almost win. I don't think there's many teams that could do that in the NFL at this moment. If you take away Dak from Dallas, they're done. We saw that last season. That was how many excuses did we see them say that? Oh, wait till Dak gets you. Well, we almost tied. We almost won. But we got in our own way.
I think it's definitely speaks to the team, but it definitely speaks to the coaching staff and how they're definitely getting guys to buy in. They're definitely teaching their techniques, and guys are, like I said, they're adapting to it. They're absorbing the information, and it's showing improving on the field whenever they're put into duty.
Yeah, dude, why was I just ruffling feathers today? I'm going through my mentions trying to find these questions. I'm just like pissing everyone off. All right, now our last question is from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi!
Oi!
My brother. We have to put this defeat to one side. It sucks, but we still hold a wild card playoff spot. Can you see us holding out for this spot or still challenging for the division, which I don't see us doing? P.S. Dallas are not a Super Bowl team on that showing. I agree.
I like the little last tidbit.
Yeah.
To work backwards on that, no, I don't think that we're going to win or in the mix for the division anymore. 3 games back is just too much of a hill to climb with only 4 games remaining. Pretty much we'd have to win out with Dallas pretty much losing out.
Yep.
So I don't see that happening, especially because they play New York and look at New York. But, yeah, so to answer your first question, it's going to be tough with all these COVID people, who's in, who's out, musical chairs kind of line up right now. To everyone's point and to a lot of our points, next man up mentality has been great this year and all season, so – I do have faith that – I mean, look, it's going to come down to the 2 Philly games, honestly. If we beat Philly, we sweep Philly, we're pretty much locked in as that 7th seed. Maybe we get up to the 6th seed, depending if we can sweep the Giants at the last game of the season. But, yeah, I'm going to say yes to answer your question. I do think that we can lock up that 7th seed at minimum.
They better. Or the season's a failure, in my opinion. I mean, be 100%. Straight up, man. And they need to build on it. And – building a dominance and building a team that can win out and can win football games, get us through the playoffs. I think Nate Coleman, we've had him on here before. He's had such a great line on Twitter today, and I loved it. And he said, I'm tired of being the David. I want to be the Goliath. I want to have that strong team. And it takes time, Nate, and hopefully that's what we're building here, and I'm confident that is what's happening, brother. So stay in tight. It's coming. I just hope we can hold on to this 7th spot because these injuries are huge. But if we've learned anything about this team, they don't ever quit, man. And you give them that benefit.
I hate the people that are like, oh, well, if we're not going to win a Super Bowl, I just want to lose. I want to tank and blah, blah. Look, you can't always just like, oh, we're not going to win, so let's start over again and start from scratch. Because that's the case, only one team wins it every single year. So pretty much you're going to be starting over every single year, first of all. Second of all, if you want this team to actually be good and consistently good, you got to get good players. You know how to get good players? They see in free agency, oh, that team's building something. That team is good. They have this, they have that. I want to go there and play for that team. The only way you do that is to make the playoffs consistently, win 9, 10 plus games every single year consistently, be a dominant team and year in and year out consistently. So, to your point, I hate that loser talk, man.
I, I do too. I do too. But I know, obviously, Scott, that's not what you're trying to get at. Because Scott, you believe that they will win the wild card or get the wild card, and we definitely agree with you. This is a good enough team to do it. To be perfectly honest, dude, I don't think there's many teams that would have come back from something like that yesterday. That was insane. And obviously, the Ravens, though, the Ravens coming back with Tyler Huntley, that was insane. That was absolutely insane. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning into this.
Frozen. I have no idea what you just said.
I was talking about the Ravens and Tyler Huntley and how they came back. I thought that was insane too.
No, that was a good game. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great game. Now let's finish this up, guys. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
Thank you so much for tuning in. It's a miserable Monday, and I'm sorry if I pissed you off on Twitter today. Just trying to have some fun, dude. The funny thing is, everyone takes you so seriously on there. That obviously I portray that, but dude, I'm laughing the entire time. I seriously am, because everyone's responses are really funny. This one guy called me a moron, and he spelled it Moran, and so I was like, yes, dude, I can tell you without a doubt, I am a moron.
You are a moron.
Absolutely, without a doubt, sir. You are correct. All right, everybody, we will see you guys on Friday. Make sure you tune in. Reed will be there next time, by the way. I promise you that. The Washington football team lost 27-20. It's not over. We're going to see them in 2 weeks. Hopefully, Jon Allen will be back. We will update you guys on Friday. We'll see you then. We love you guys. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way, you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!